Hello out there in YWCA land. This is Kim Siciliano, the CEO at YWCA Northeastern New York. We are so excited. First, it's International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day to you all. Happy International Women's Day to you, Katrina Garcia.
Happy Women's International Day to you too, Kim. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. This is our second virtual interview series, Writing Herstory. Katrina is one of the YW's very own, and she's going to talk to us a lot more as we get through this interview in the next 20 to 30 minutes about what makes Katrina tick, talk, as well as how she's making history in our community and in her own life. So I'm going to just do a quick update on what Women's History Month is all about. It was declared, it's a declared month that highlights the contributions of women throughout history and contemporary society. It also corresponds with International Women's Day, which is today, March 8th. The commemoration began in 1978 as Women's History Day in California. It became a national week in 1980, then a month in 1987, because we couldn't pack all of the amazing work that women do into a day or a week. So International Women's Day, which is what we're celebrating today, began at 11. Still, the YW has it beat because the YW is celebrating 135 years in 2023 with their inception in 1888. So with me today is Katrina, who is a woman making history every day. Katrina, tell us some more about who you are and how you became to be part of this wonderful broadcast.
So, hi, I'm Katrina. I am a domestic violence counselor at YWCA, and I really love working here. I hope you know that, Kim. I work with high-risk clients. So high-risk means that the clients were almost killed by their perpetrators. These perpetrators, most of the time, do not follow the law. I also co-facilitate Strive, which is a career readiness program funded by Google, where we guide them to be ready in the workforce. So it's amazing. We have 9 participants right now, 8 women, 1 male, and that was really good. On top of that, I work with a lot of immigrants in the community. We jokingly say in the counseling department that I am the unofficial immigrant counselor. So I get all of them, which is really great. Why I do it, why, I like to do what I do. My main reason is that when my brother decided to join the Army, I wanted to be the person that he can talk to about his experiences in the field. And I wanted to be that person like, hey, I'm having a hard time. I want that to be the older sister. However, the more I go deeper in the field of psychology, I realize that the Asian community needs more people to talk about why we need to discuss the importance of mental health. And it's the reason why I decided to pursue my PhD in clinical psychology. So yeah, and I'm an immigrant. So that's amazing. I just passed my US citizenship and I have to swear in on the 24th with it. So that's exciting. And yeah.
Well, that gives us a whole lot to talk about. So I'm going to ask you to just explain a little bit further on that. 10 words that describe, and if you can't come up with 10, that describe you. You said immigrant. You said counselor. You said big sister.
Yes,
so
big sister.
Some other words that also describe Katrina Garcia.
Immigrant, big sister. I would say intellectual. I kind of am a little bit nerd. I'm a nerd, so I like that a lot. Yep. I would say I love my words. That's hard. I don't. Counselor. I love being a counselor. I love being a therapist. Future doctor. So when I graduate, I want to be called Dr. Garcia. Yeah. So those kind of.
Are saying, I don't know if I could be a doctor. Listen to Katrina. She's got it. It's a goal, and she's striving for it. Anything else that you wanted to share with us about you, Katrina, as a person, as an individual, as a human doing work in our community?
I would say that I love what I do. I love my team that I work with here at the counseling department. We're such a very close-knit group wherein we take time at the end of the day to just discuss the hard cases, talk about the hard things that we normally you don't want to talk about, what Sarah, our supervisor, always says, like, let's talk about it now. Don't bring it home. And we're also always encouraged here to just, like, have some self-care day or self-care time where even if it's just 15 minutes for us to just sit and work on a puppet like this and just, like, de-stress. That's very encouraged. I love baking. I love cooking. That's my one of the things that I do when I get home and it's just like a tough case. So I try to, like, cook for some people. And a fun thing that I love to do, which is very weird, I have a $32 membership at a car wash, and I make sure that I go there every day just to, like, a form of decompress for me. So, like, I go in, I see the bubbles coming down, like, okay, we're gonna leave all of this here. We're
Love
not
So
but I see the go outside. Yeah,
work and the energy from the day then allows
exactly.
you had to go, okay, all right. Those I would have never known. So let's talk a little bit about people in your family. So what traits do the women, femme presenting folks in your family share? How have they informed your opinions of what women, femme presenting folks should be like? Talk to me about that.
So I consider the women in my family very strong women. So we always joke within the family that the women are the head people, even though it's really not. So I would say the best example for me would be my mom. She is a very hardworking person. She's a travel nurse. She's so humble. She's affectionate. She teaches me how to speak up about what's going on my mind and tells me that, if you love what you do, do it. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it. She always, like, it's either a yes or a no. That's what it is. And the women in my family are very open in talking about anything that sometimes it's hard to talk about in a family. And that's weird because I'm Asian. Normally us Asians don't talk about these, but we jokingly talk about sex. We talk about work. We talk about career. We talk about studies. And that taught me that, in my family, I have a voice as a woman, and that, like, made me who I am in this community, like, where I am at, that brought me to where I am, and say, like, you're a woman, even though you're a woman, you have a voice. And that's, like, a good starting point for me growing up.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. So what makes you a good leader? And why do we need more women, femme presenting folks in leadership roles? Why is that incredibly important?
I think one of the most important thing of being a good leader is to have a wonderful team around us to support us in what we are doing and being able to talk about the things that it's hard to talk about. Because you cannot be a leader if you don't have any followers. And I think that's important to include them in your success. So I would say, like I said earlier, the counseling team here is very supportive. We're open to conversations that we need to discuss, whether it's a hard case or not. We need more women in leadership simply because women's brain works very differently than men. We have different boxes in our head where we can all pick from one box to another box and just combine them into one. While men, on the other hand, use one box at a time. And that's the difference. What men cannot see, women can see. What men cannot comprehend, maybe us women can comprehend a lot better than them. And it's a good, trait to have as a leader, and being very open to certain ideologies and opinions and accepting what you can control and cannot control is part of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. So when we look back in through a perspective of women and femme presenting folks, we find there is no such thing as one single perspective, right? Like, because everybody comes from their different spot in the world. It's important to look back at history, recognize these unique perspectives across identities, and how is it different from the way we typically look at history, kind of what we've learned in the history books. How is it different to individual folks with different?
I would say that it's important to look back at history because we can always learn something new from it. So history happened for a reason, and there's always a reason as to why certain things in history happen. We can avoid certain legal decisions right now because we saw how certain situations affected the community before, especially women and children in history. I believe that based on history, we can also learn from different cultures. What does this other culture did that we didn't do? And maybe with that certain ideology or instance would work in our culture? What can we change from it? So like seeing what they did differently from ours, and that is a really good opportunity for growth. I always believe that there's always something in history that we haven't seen yet, that maybe rereading it, relearning it will be like, oh, this is what happened, and maybe if we don't do that again, maybe now will be something different.
Great thoughts on that. So let's go a little bit further down in our questions. Talk about something that people could do to prevent further discrimination against and femme presenting folks. So how do we, everyone out there that presents as a woman, and eliminate that discrimination? As we know, the YW's mission is to eliminate racism and to empower women, and you can't have one without the other. So talk a little bit about your perspective on that, Katrina.
I think there's a lot of social stereotypes about gender. So like women are very emotional. Women always feel pain where they have their period. But these certain things are normal bodily functions as a woman. And there's also prejudice and fear towards women in the workforce. They always say like, maybe I think that some men are afraid of women because of what we can do and what we can give on the table. So it's hard because, like what we were talking about here at the counseling meeting last time, that there's a lot of women in power. And I think it's important that we need to have at least some women represent. There's a lot of male in power. I think we need some women representation, and because it's important that women are represented so that our needs are met. What we want can be seen. Our certain emotions, like maybe I know certain countries right now, like if a woman have their period, like they have the choice to not go to work and they can just stay at home, but that is not happening here in America. And I was like, I wish this is happening here. Certain things like that, because there were women in the government, they were able to like do certain things like that. Yes, we're emotional and that's what we are, but that doesn't deter us from doing our jobs and making it better than others. I believe that there's a lot of discrimination going on, and it's hard. For me, honestly, Kim, this is a hard conversation. Like,
yes,
yeah, because I experienced racism when I was living in Italy before, and this is just like, oh my gosh, this is opening certain things that I like never thought about. Like I kind of put in a back burner, and this is just like, wow.
Well, I appreciate you staying here and being emotional with me. I'd like you to talk about your time in Italy, because I don't think that we even brought up the fact that you spent a number of years in Italy and what that was like. Where were you born, Katrina?
So I was born in the Philippines. I grew up in the Philippines, did my school there, went to college there. When I turned 18, my parents decided we're going to move to Italy because my dad works there. And so we moved, we stayed there. It was amazing. We only stayed there for about like 4 years. And it was very different. In the Philippines, we speak English, and then we also speak Filipino and another dialect. Normally, that's how it is. So living in Italy, I have no idea what the language is. I was learning how to speak Italian, and it gets very frustrating sometimes when you ride a bus. And then I started speaking in either English or Filipino with certain friends. And I would hear certain Italians that would say something like, hey, you got to speak Italian. And I'm like, I can't speak Italian. Like, I want to, but I can't. And like, I get discriminated by my skin color. I am Asian. You can see it, like it's my eyes, it's right over there. And like, they'll say something like, go back to your own country and certain things like that. But I would not say that was a bad experience. I would just say like, that was a learning opportunity for me to see, these people weren't able to leave their country. I think it would be great if they can leave their country, go somewhere else, experience other cultures, and maybe that would open their mind on, that there are other people in this world aside from them.
True. Yeah. That's a great point to make, that it's incredibly important for people to step outside of their own self-awareness to experience other cultures and other people who don't necessarily look like them, who don't necessarily speak like them, and to take that as a learning opportunity. And that is a great piece of advice, because many people don't do that. They right away say that person's different from me. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. So when you left Italy, where did you go from there? Did you come to America at that point?
Yes. So after 3 years, my mom is a licensed nurse here in New York. And then so my mom was like, it's time to move again. So we moved here to New York. We moved here in Niskayuna, actually. And then I'm here since then. So it's amazing. It's amazing.
And Katrina, you talked a little bit at the beginning, but talk about your schooling, because you have been moving towards and working towards becoming Dr. Katrina Garcia. So can you tell us where you are in that process?
So in my schooling, I'm currently on my second year. I'm going to be in my third this fall, hopefully. It's a long process. So my PhD in clinical psychology, I'm getting it at Saybrook University. It's based in California. It's all online. However, I have to go to California twice a year for my clinical hours. So I'm almost there, but it's not really there. And this, I would say that the Y is giving me the opportunity to learn to do what I'm learning. So we would have clinical meetings wherein we would go onto the DSM, which is the Bible of psychology, and look through the different diagnoses and say something like, hey, tell me about your client. How would you diagnose your client? I'm not licensed yet, but it's a good learning opportunity for me to do that here. So yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that, how the team at the YW works to support our clients, but then also how in turn that you each support each other with back and forth and sharing information. And Katrina, you bring an entirely different feel to the counseling department because of your different experiences you've had throughout. So I thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to go to another question. If you could speak with any woman or femme-presenting person in history, who would that be, and what would that conversation be like on that park bench? What would you be talking about?
So this is actually this one is a hard one because I have a lot of women that I want to talk to. So
really, right?
Yeah,
you can do more than I'm not going to make you say this one.
Probably going to be 10 pages long if it's all of them, but one specific person is Mary Culkin. So in the field of psychology, she it's a little bit controversial. So she went to school for her doctorate. Harvard refused to grant her doctorate because she was a woman, and she didn't let that stop her. Instead, she showed them what she can do. She contributed and developed what we call the paired association technique, where a person is asked to learn to associate one syllable or word with another. So that can be let's say chair, cold, or water, hot, At the same time, she became the first female president of the American Psychological Association. So I would like to, talk to her and speak to her, asking her questions like, how does it feel pushing through the field of psychology when everything feels like everything is against you? Because it's true, even in this field, there's a lot of women, yes, but still men are dominating. And it's hard to be a woman sometimes in this kind of field, especially in the medical field as well. Or asking her questions like, what are your motivating factors in continuing this field, even though, they didn't grant you your doctorate, even though she finished everything. She went to school. She did everything that she could academically. They still didn't give her what she deserved. I also want to ask her, did you ever think that your name is going to be talked about years later? Because it's just have you ever thought about that? This conversation, even you, Kim, have you ever thought about someone will be talking about you 15 years from now? And it's just amazing. I wonder how that feels. Or asking Mary,
I hope it's important, and I hope it's good. It'll be you, Katrina. It will be the same for you.
Yeah.
So it's something that you have to think about is what will be the message that people will remember me for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
So I one more question, and then a bit of a wrap up. But do you think the feminist movement has succeeded? And what's left? I mean, when we just were talking about women who have paved the way for you and for me, and have we succeeded? And is there work left to do?
I think it's a work in progress. Like, we have a lot of work to do. We haven't fully succeeded, but we have made progress. We have done some changes. I believe we need more representation of women, but also women in their own cultures. Like, that would be great to see, like, a Filipina representation, you know, in the feminist movement, or even like someone that looks like me. It will be awesome. I want to see more people that looks like me joining the movement and talking about hard things. It's a work in progress. That's how I see it. Like, there's a lot of work to be done. The why us, we need to like speak more about it. We have to like encourage people to like talk about it. We have to start talking about like the hard things, the discussion about like, you know, people of color, trans, queer voices, sex, everything. Because if we don't talk about it, it's just going to be in a back burner.
Absolutely. We need to make sure the feminist movement is inclusive, and it includes all folks who present as women or femme presenting, so that we're not leaving been predominant movement. And we want to make sure that, again, those perspectives, those differences, those identities are included in that feminist movement. So we're bringing everybody forward with a voice, right?
Definitely.
So talk a little bit about your motto. So we're going to wrap this up, Katrina. So what is your motto? Like, how do you go through every day? Is there a mantra that you have? Is there, you know, some going that you could throw out there into the universe and say, hey, if you're struggling, or if you're a woman and you are trying to get through a difficult day, here's what you can say to yourself.
One of the things is, I'm actually looking right there because it's right over there up in my office. So there's this one, so I am a Christian too. And there's this one verse that really, I always have it up and everywhere in my phone. So like, it says something about like, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So it's about like managing what I can and cannot control, which is like a very therapy base, I guess. So in a circle, if you have a piece of paper, you can draw.
Sure.
Inside that circle is you. Anything inside that circle, Katrina can control. I can control my emotions. I can control what I think. I can control how I react. I can control what I eat. Everything there. Anything outside my circle, I cannot control. I cannot control you, Kim. I cannot control my clients. I cannot control anyone. And I think every day I have to wake up and make a choice, especially in this job that we do, which is very hard to like, you know, divvy up what can we do right now? What can we do later? What we cannot do, certain things like that. So it's my motivating factor every day that is like, I cannot control this, I can do this instead. So that kind of like helped me to do what I do here.
I think those are great pieces of advice for folks who absolutely struggle with things that are within their reach and their control, and things that are not, and how to balance that. So I may take a sip here. I have been so honored to speak with you, Katrina, and we're so excited to have you as part of the YW team. Some words that describe Katrina: nerd, a big sister, a counselor, a future doctor. Encouraging some other ideas that she brought forward was taking care of yourself, self-care, baking if you can, and if you love dirty, and get right in there, and then it's always something you can give back to somebody else. Overcoming social stereotypes, more women in power, meeting your own emotional needs, and we have to be open to conversations being discussed, sometimes on hard topics, so that we can all come together. So I really just want to thank Katrina. And Katrina, is there any final words that you want to share with us about or that you want to shout out to anybody into the YW universe?
I think you have to, I think if it is mentionable, it is manageable. Whatever you think you can mention, it is manageable.
That's I love it. So thank you so much again. And I want to thank our viewers out there in YW land for joining us today on International Women's History Day, and then in Women's History Month. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. And